Hello, and welcome to Cybersecurity Today. I'm your host, Jim Wiggins, and we're set to explore the latest and most critical updates in the realm of computer security. Over the next 30 minutes, prepare yourself for a stimulating broadcast filled with insightful discussions and the freshest developments in cybersecurity. If this is your first time tuning in, allow me to introduce our program. This show uniquely blends the formats of a talk show and a newscast designed to cater to a diverse audience, ranging from cybersecurity beginners all the way to seasoned experts. For those new to the field, we provide essential information and resources to safeguard your digital spaces. For our advanced viewing audience, expect in-depth analysis and progressive insights from prominent industry leaders. Sit back and enjoy as we embark on an informative and captivating exploration of cybersecurity. We hope that you find today's show both enlightening and enjoyable. Our first segment is called Cyber Bites, and this delves into the latest developments and events in the cybersecurity industry, covering everything from significant data breaches to emerging threats. This segment is crucial for anyone aiming to stay updated on the swift evolution of this dynamic industry. We have packed agenda to discuss, and we're excited to deliver these updates to you. So stay tuned and don't go anywhere. Then in our second segment, we're honored to host Mr. Gabriel Gomez, a director of cybersecurity at IBM and a renowned leader with extensive experience in IT and cybersecurity. He'll delve into the pivotal role of the Federal Risk and Authorization Management Program, sometimes referred to as FedRAMP, in cybersecurity, outlining strategic measures organizations can adopt to navigate the complexities of cloud security. Mr. Gomez is a venerated subject matter expert in the cybersecurity field, widely respected for his strategic insights and practical approaches to modern cybersecurity challenges. Okay, so let's get into the Cyber Bite segment and talk about what's going on today in the cybersecurity industry. In current news, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, also known as CISA, has issued an alert urging the software industry to address directory traversal vulnerabilities, which has been exploitable for over 2 decades despite known mitigation strategies. CISA highlighted recent high-profile exploits such as the severe vulnerability in ConnectWise's Screen Connect and a medium severity flaw in Cisco's App Dynamics controller, emphasizing the ongoing threat to critical infrastructure organizations, including healthcare. The agency is calling for software manufacturers to conduct formal testing for these vulnerabilities and implement well-known mitigations to protect the nation's critical services. This push is part of a broader Secure by Design initiative that includes eliminating default passwords and SQL injection vulnerabilities, as well as moving away from memory unsafe programming languages like C and C++. In other news, the National Security Agency, NSA, FBI, and the State Department have issued a joint cybersecurity advisory warning of a North Korean cyber threat group, Kimsuki, which is exploiting weak email authentication policies to conduct spear phishing campaigns. Posing as legitimate experts in East Asian affairs, the group gathers intelligence on geopolitical events and foreign policy strategies. The advisory emphasizes the importance of properly configured demarked policies to prevent such malicious activities. To bolster cybersecurity, organizations are urged to enhance demarked security policies and implement recommended mitigations. That's going to do it for the Cyber Bite segment. After a short break, we'll return with Mr. Gabriel Gomez to delve into navigating the cloud, the role of FedRAMP in cybersecurity. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more insight into cloud security and how FedRAMP helps government agencies protect their information.
Here's something we bet you didn't know. Nearly half of all cancers can be prevented, mostly by making changes in your diet, controlling your weight, and of course, by not smoking. Visit prevent50.org and get a free 30-day planner filled with tips, recipes, and more.
Welcome back to Cybersecurity Today. We're now joined by Mr. Gabriel Gomez, who is a Director of Cybersecurity at IBM Federal Consulting. With a distinguished career spanning over 2 decades in IT and cybersecurity, Mr. Gomez has played a pivotal role in enhancing data security and compliance across various platforms, especially in cloud environments. Today, he will impart his insights on navigating the cloud, the role of FedRAMP in cybersecurity, emphasizing how organizations can effectively manage cloud security challenges through strategic compliance with FedRAMP. Mr. Gomez is recognized as a subject matter expert whose contributions have significantly shaped the cybersecurity landscape. Gabriel, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jim. Pleasure. I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. I thought maybe what we would do is ask if you could potentially start by explaining what FedRAMP is and its main objectives in the context of cloud security. Can we start there?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give kind of a layman's terms as to what FedRAMP is. Created in 2011 to the response for the federal government looking to provide a standard security framework that CSPs could use, and it would be tailored towards systems that are processing federal data in a federal data space. The goal there is to really accelerate the adoption of cloud solutions through the use of standardized security assessments and authorizations. So that's a really quick version of what FedRAMP is.
Understood, understood. Can you talk a little bit about why it's considered a critical framework for both government agencies as well as those CSPs, those cloud service providers that facilitate the capability?
Sure. Yeah. It's kind of considered a critical framework for a number of reasons. But the main point there is that it's a standardized process across all federal agencies that are utilizing cloud services. It's great for the feds because they know that the CSPs are going through a standardized security authorization or audit. There's a standardized process for a lot of the things that the CSPs have to provide. And so it's really boils down to having kind of a standardized process that allows the CSPs or the cloud service providers to work with all agencies, and the agencies themselves know that they're getting someone who's been through a rigorous and standardized security process.
I do want to take you off on just a quick moment just to clarify. I expect a long answer, but when we use the term cloud service provider, what is an example of that? Is that Azure? Is that AWS? What does that mean to you? Can you speak to that just for 15 or 20 seconds?
Yeah, cloud service provider is anyone who provides I hate to use cloud service, but has a platform, whether it's SaaS or PaaS. And you've mentioned a couple of some of the major ones, but there are a number of applications that are hosted in the cloud that are considered SaaS, and those are what CSPs are, really, the cloud service provider.
Understood. I understood. I just want to make sure when we got a diverse background of viewers that watch this, so I want to make sure they have some context of what we mean by that. Okay, cool. So let's talk now about security controls, because ultimately FedRAMP's heavy focus is on security controls. What are the core security controls that FedRAMP requires that these cloud providers to implement? Can you speak to that for a minute?
Sure. So the core security controls are really based off of the impact level, which is based off of FIPS 199, and the security controls themselves are based off of NIST 853, now Red 5. So all the same control families. Red 5 brings in a couple of different controls and some nuance to those control families, but it's all based off of the NIST 853 series.
Understood. Understood. So can we talk for a moment specifically about how FedRAMP aligns with frameworks like NIST? What's the connection? You kind of alluded to it a little bit, but can you maybe elaborate more on that?
Yeah, sure. So based off of the impact level, there are a number of controls that are applied. So impact levels being the data that's being processed, right? So as an example, a moderate impact system may have 325 controls. Now with NIST Red 5, there may be additional controls, but in general, there are about 325 of those controls. It is based off of the same NIST framework and the control families that are under NIST, like access control, contingency planning and management, identity and access. So all of those controls still apply, and depending on, like I said, the impact level is where the sensitivity or the larger amount of controls will apply. So obviously, a high impact system is going to have a lot more number of controls, whereas a moderate system may have a lot less. And so most of the control families are all hit during that time. It just may be the level of depth of which that control family is applied.
Understood. So let's say somebody works for a cloud service provider and they want to begin the FedRAMP authorization process. What does that look like? What are the initial steps that they go through?
Yeah, so the major thing, the first initial step is to determine what type of authorization path they want to go down. FedRAMP has two authorization types, and that's an agency-sponsored or a JAB, or the Joint Authorization Board. Ideally, the agency-sponsored way is a little less rigorous and a little bit less competitive, whereas the JAB has about 12 systems that are selected a year to go through the JAB process. It's a lot lengthier. And so one, I would say, is having an agency sponsor, working with someone at an agency or a champion in an agency where they can help walk you through and sponsor you through that process. But the first one is really determining that level and where you're going to go with that. That's probably the first initial step that they're going to have to take. Outside of that, most organizations choose to kind of go the agency route because, like I said, the JAB is very competitive, and it's a lot broader in the controls requirements, where the agency authorizations are more dialed into what the agency specifics are looking for.
Understood. Hey, Gabe, I know that there is a role within the FedRAMP program called the Third-Party Assessment Organization. Sometimes they refer to it as a 3PAO. Can you talk a little bit about how involved they are during this particular process when it comes to the CSPs?
Sure, yeah. So the 3PAO, or the Third-Party Assessment Organization, is that they are an accredited assessment IVMB team, if you will, that goes in and actually assess the security posture of that application that's going through the process. They're responsible for doing things like validating controls and conducting pen tests on some of these applications. And so they are independent. They are there to validate those controls on behalf of FedRAMP, and that is ultimately what FedRAMP helps to determine the risk acceptance.
Understood. Let's talk now a little bit about some of the potential common hurdles that organizations, companies encounter during the FedRAMP assessment. Can you identify or speak to some of the challenges that orgs might actually run into with regard to this validation process?
Sure. When it comes to security-specific requirements, a lot of the hurdles that we see are not having complete mitigation strategies. The documentation is not up to date. There's a lack of SOPs to support the control implementation. So when the assessors are there and they're looking for evidence that the control is being met, a lot of agencies or a lot of companies don't have adequate documentation to represent truly what the posture is of that control. And so it causes delays, and there are obviously retesting that has to happen. So that's probably one of the most common hurdles, other than really just kind of not anticipating the level of effort it takes to undergo the process. It can be a very lengthy process. It is resource and cost intensive. And so a lot of those challenges come from not really understanding what the full level of effort is going to be in order to get through that certification process.
Understood. I'm curious, maybe building on that, what are some of the top challenges that you think organizations face when trying to meet these FedRAMP requirements?
I would say resource alignment, making sure that the focus is on the security of the application, not just the functionality of the application. It is a security audit, and so having resources that are assigned to respond to the requirements and readily available. Definitely, some of those challenges that we see, daily are, just not having the right resources in place, or underestimating kind of the level of effort. I always say the more that we can tell up front and prepare people for up front as to what's coming, the better the process goes. And so we see a lot of success when companies are very well engaged, and they're available, they're responsive, they're really kind of dedicated to this process.
Understood. We've talked a little bit about some of the negative side of it, or the challenges you run into. What are some of the positives or the primary benefits for companies that achieve FedRAMP authorization? Like, why would an organization want to pursue that?
Yeah, so it's definitely an enhanced transparency between the government and CSPs. It does things like improved trustworthiness, reliability, really consistency kind of the quality of the federal security and authorization process. For a CSP, it improves their real-time security visibility. It's a uniform approach to risk-based management. And then, the increasing reuse of existing assessments across agencies is another primary benefit that companies will see once they are authorized.
Understood. Are there competitive advantages that companies see in the marketplace? So in other words, they go out and they pursue certification around FedRAMP, they get approved. What kind of business advantages are there in that respect?
So I can't speak for all of them, but what I can speak for is that, going through the process makes them a lot more marketable. Already being certified and on the FedRAMP marketplace, obviously increases their visibility to other agencies that are looking for that specific application or offering. So it definitely makes them more competitive. It's a more streamlined and quicker acquisition process because they're not having to get certified in order to, implement the system. And so I definitely see the benefits of a company being on the marketplace. It's a lot larger pool of marketing for agencies to pull from.
Understood. So without like naming names or providing any kind of confidential details, right? Mm-hmm. Any like case studies or success stories, things that could really try to focus on key factors that you've seen contribute to successful navigations of the FedRAMP process. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll speak in general terms. I think the level of engagement, as I mentioned, is definitely a key success. Understanding and providing timely responses to requests for evidence is always good, especially when it comes to the 3 PAOs. Time is money, and the more responsive that these CSPs are, the quicker these processes can go. It's an outlay of resources, and I think the quicker and faster they can get through the process, the better they can start getting those licenses out and ultimately increasing their revenue. But I would say, again, just the engagement, commitment of the right resources at the right time, and then like that timely response for requests of evidence. Also just having a security focus, having that baked in and not bolted on is always a key factor in success, because it is a security audit, and focusing on that is very, very important.
Understood. I ask every one of my guests that comes in here to look into their crystal ball, right, and to look into the future. How do you anticipate that FedRAMP will evolve in response to the new technological developments, both in the IT spaces and the cloud computing? Let me give you an example. I think, it seems like I can't read an article today without the discussion around generative artificial intelligence or things along that nature. How do you envision that this stuff is going to impact the FedRAMP program moving forward? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I definitely think the FedRAMP program will have to evolve in the control sets and what it is that they're actually auditing against, right? So we're going to start seeing things like AI-driven, generative AI-driven applications, and there's going to have to be controls that I'm sure NIST are already working on, and there's published, I believe, not too long ago. But working with AI is definitely the buzz right now. And so, FedRAMP's going to have to definitely, grow with that threat landscape, whatever that might be that we might see from, generative AI being introduced. But, we're seeing things like adoption of new controls and say, let's say Red 5, when we're talking about, the 853. They've added over 66 new base controls. There's probably about 202 new control enhancements. So that we're seeing a lot of controls that are addressing things that previously weren't addressed, and that's just come out of an introduction, something new to the threat landscape. So I think FedRAMP will continue to evolve in the requirements based off of the technology growth and how it's moving. So if it's introduction of generative AI or some new technology, I think they're just going to have to adjust, and we'll probably see that happen with some of the control enhancements.
Got it. Understood. Hey, I'm curious, let's put your consulting caps on for a moment. And a company comes to you and says, hey, we're interested in this FedRAMP program, the certification. If you had to give them guidance, what first steps would you recommend that they look at when they're considering FedRAMP as a certification, as an actual program? Any thoughts?
I mean, I would say, do an inventory of your resources, and that means, all of your resources and what it takes. I would say seek guidance from, experienced companies or consulting companies that have been through this process and can help you navigate some of the pitfalls. All of those things will help you avoid, extended time added to things and cost, obviously. Ensure that you've got all the right resources available and you can commit to the duration of the process is very big. You have to know that it is a lengthy process. Nothing is done very quickly, and you have to have that mindset that it's going to take time and the resources are dedicated to doing this and responding quickly. Again, I would really focus on the security of your offering ahead of time, making sure that becomes kind of the standard practice, because you're going to have to maintain that offering even after getting the certification and continuous monitoring aspect. So the easier and more effective you can make your security practices kind of built into the things, I think the easier you're going to see to maintain it, and it's going to increase your odds of getting through with the less amount of findings.
Understood. Hey, I'm wondering, are there any misconceptions about the FedRAMP program and process that you think would be useful for our audience to at least be aware of?
Yeah, I've heard, this is a lot more involved than I thought it was going to be. We've heard things like, we thought it was kind of a quick paper assessment, and no, it's not. You're going to have those 3 PAOs going in there and actually, looking at your technology, and they're going to run through those controls, and you're going to have to provide evidence to prove that you meet those controls. And it's not something that is, a simple check in the box. We'll have someone come in and, within months we'll have our authorization. It's not. And fortunately and unfortunately, I've seen a lot of companies start the process and realize just how vigorous it is, and decide that it's just not for them. The authorization, is just not something that they can commit to. So they kind of take a step back from it, and so that goes back to the federal government making sure that the people they are doing business with, the CSPs that they're getting their applications from, are vetted. They've gone through a very, rigorous process, and they're getting a secure application that's being put in the hands of, the users for the federal data. That's probably the biggest misconception that I see is just, the level of effort that goes into obtaining the certification.
Understood. Just a little bit of time left in our discussion, but I'm curious if you have identified any critical success factors that would be important to highlight or be aware of in navigating the FedRAMP landscape effectively.
I think, definitely, like we talked about, not applying the appropriate resources up front, kind of failing, again, to bake in security as opposed to, bolting it on early. Underestimating the time and resources and commitment to the process. On a technical aspect, a lot of things that we see are success factors is, ensuring that you have accurately defined your authorization boundary and depicting the data flow data diagram, excuse me. One of the common ones that we see a lot of is, not having, valid FIPS 140 encryption modules. Using external services where the federal data is stored or in transit that are not FedRAMP authorized, and so an authorization at a system impact level may be lower than what they're working on. So, making sure that those things are in place. Multi-factor authentication is big. And then poor documentation and immature management processes is what we see a lot of too. So I think if they're hitting that gambit of kind of best practices, they'll make it through. They'll have a higher success rate. And obviously, the quicker the success rate is, the less cost, the quicker they're generating revenue.
2 questions left. Last one, or next to last one, is what advice would you give professionals entering the field of cloud security and FedRAMP compliance? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I say do it. One, if you've got the opportunity to do and work in what I consider the movement of security is moving to the cloud. We're seeing everything kind of go that way, and so it is definitely the area to be in. I'd say stay curious. Being in cyber, you've always got to be curious. You've got to continuously learn. And I think that once you are familiar with the regs or the regulations that you're working with, get some hands on keyboards and explore different technologies, especially cloud-based technologies. It's changing so rapidly, and the only way to kind of stay in it is to continuously do it. Get your hands on it.
Understood. Last question, 10 seconds. Where can people learn more about the FedRAMP program?
So definitely the FedRAMP website. The FedRAMP PMO does a fantastic job with providing playbooks and guides and templates and all kinds of things. So definitely check out FedRAMP's website. There are a number of resources there. They even have some ISO training that you can look at, and a lot of this stuff is free and readily available if you know where to look.
Awesome, awesome. Gabriel, we are out of time. Thank you for joining us and providing such valuable insights to our viewers. We really appreciate your time.
No, absolutely. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
That's going to conclude today's episodes, guys and gals. We again extend our thanks to Mr. Gabriel Gomez for his invaluable insights into navigating cloud security and the critical role of FedRAMP in cybersecurity. We hope today's discussion has been enlightening for you and has provided valuable perspectives on effective strategies for managing challenges in the cloud. For more information about cybersecurity today and stay up to date on future episodes, please visit our show's website at www.cybersecuritytoday.org. Additionally, you can scan the QR code displayed at the bottom of your screen for quick and easy access to the website. Finally, we welcome your questions or comments via email at contact@cybersecuritytoday.org. Feel free to reach out to us. That's going to do it for today. Thanks a lot for joining us. We look forward to seeing you at our next broadcast. Stay safe, stay informed. Have a great day.